Hey YouTube, welcome back to the Secret Underground Bunker location. I'm your host, Cav Trooper Munoz, and this is a video reply to Southern Prepper 1 about the government making his choices easy. I just want to say that, well, I got a lot to say actually on this subject. And this country was founded on the principles that all men were created equal and that people had the right to self-governance. How we got from there to here, it's easy to see. As we made our lives more modern, as we removed the obstacles and hardships from life and produce things to make our lives automated so we wouldn't be bored, we have created a society of entitlement. And that was not what the original founders intended. Many Hispanics, Asians, blacks, want to live the same American dream. It's not immigrants who have watered down and destroyed our Constitution. It's politicians and bureaucrats. Politicians and bureaucrats have abandoned the Constitution fully. If anybody still doesn't see that, you're either sleeping or you're in denial. There's a guy who walks around Southern California asking people questions about the history of this country, about our laws and governance. And the majority of the people cannot answer these questions. I don't blame them. There's nothing stressed in this country that would have us honor our forefathers who fought to create a country of individualism and self-reliance. That's not where we are. For example, we have always gone out of the way to support the businesses that would provide more comfort and more jobs to Americans. But somewhere along the line that was abandoned with these trade agreements. Now, I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of all these trade agreements, but I do know that if you don't manufacture anything in your own country, and if you don't have a way to produce goods, then your country is lost. There's nothing to keep people working. And we can go on the ins and outs of why the labor was put into other countries, but basically it's the same thing as this $15 an hour minimum wage. People get together and think they're entitled to make a living from doing something that most everybody can do. That's not skilled labor. That's labor. And labor is cheap because there's a lot of people to do it and a lot of people who can do it. That was always the difference between skilled and manual labor. My grandfather, who was a ditch digger, could have told you that he wasn't going to make a fortune digging ditches because it was manual labor. We talk about the illegals. Who's letting these illegals in? Who's supporting these sanctuary cities? Who's supporting the thought of these sanctuary cities? Who's pushing that agenda? Once again, it's elitist politicians who want to pad their vote. because they understand that people who come here illegally want handouts. And if they make them citizens, historically, they're going to vote for the people who give them handouts. A lot of what we see, too, is this garbage that's being taught in the institutions of higher learning. Now, I'm just some dumb vet, but I can read. And I read the Constitution, and I read the Declaration of Independence, and I don't see in there anything about entitling people to transgendered bathrooms, entitling one group of people more than others, entitling people to handouts in the form of welfare. This has gone beyond welfare. And we fought that battle when, in the 80s, and the 90s, when we decided as a country that paying people to do nothing and paying people to have children out of wedlock was not what this country is about. But here comes Obama, and here comes this administration, and we're right back to the same or higher levels of non-productivity. And it's not going to get better by fueling it. You know that. But it wasn't the populace who decided this. Once again, this is entitled politicians padding their base so they can continue to stay in power. Now, what's in it for these politicians? Why would they do that? Why would they go against their own country and their own constitution? Do you see any of these politicians getting poor? Do you see any of these politicians going without a meal? Do you see any of these politicians taking the mass transit that they're always pushing for you to take? Do you see these politicians using Obamacare? No, hell no. Because that's for the masses. That's for the lowlifes like us. So it's not multiculturalism or Hispanics that are destroying this country. It's a loss of the foundation of what this country was built on. And until we get back to that, until we start pushing that, we're going to continue to get more of the same. The reason people aren't out in the streets protesting this and saying they're going to not work anymore, is because they haven't got uncomfortable enough. When hard-working traditional Americans become uncomfortable enough with the government where they start pushing back, then you may see a change. Today, every day, traditional constitutional loving Americans seem powerless to take on these huge institutions, these huge forms of government, the bureaucracies. I see you fighting for America, SP1, and I got to tell you, you're fighting the good fight, and you're doing more than what anybody could be asked to do. But even then, we're so far down the rabbit hole that you and I agree that the only change will come the way this guy brought it. That's how the change is going to come.